"Don't turn on the light," a man whispered inside the garage. "Just get what's in the car and get out." Maya Williams was already standing at the kitchen door when an iron blade scraped against the lock again. A sharp crack followed, and a strip of wood broke loose from the side entrance of her garage. Two men moved through the darkness beyond the narrow glass panel. One remained near the electrical box while the other worked a slim pry bar between the window and the frame of Maya's dark blue SUV. Neither had knocked, announced himself, or made any attempt to contact the owner of the house. Maya opened the kitchen door. "Leave my garage. Now." Both men turned at once. A flashlight snapped on and struck her directly in the face, forcing her to narrow her eyes against the glare without giving up her position. "Stay where you are," the man beside the SUV ordered. The beam lowered briefly, and a silver badge flashed against his chest. The second man stepped out of the darkness in a police uniform, a duty belt fastened around his waist and a body camera mounted above his shirt pocket. The camera showed no sign that it was recording. The man holding the flashlight wore sergeant's stripes. His nameplate read, "Price." The younger officer beside him was Mercer. Maya looked past them at the damaged side door, then at the steel bar still in Price's hand. "You broke into my garage." Price kept the flashlight trained on her. "Who are you?" "I own this house. Do you have identification?" "You entered my property without asking who lived here." A flicker of irritation crossed Price's face. He had expected confusion or fear, perhaps an apology for interrupting him. Maya offered none of those things. "We received a report that a stolen vehicle was being kept at this address," he said. Maya glanced toward the SUV. "What vehicle?" "We'll ask the questions." "What make was reported?" Price did not answer. "What model?" His silence deepened. "What license plate did dispatch give you?" Mercer looked toward Price, but the sergeant did not take his eyes off Maya. "You need to cooperate," Price said. "I am cooperating. I am asking why two police officers broke a private lock and entered a garage without permission. This is an active investigation. Do you have a warrant?" "We have credible information." "That was not my question." Price lowered the flashlight until the beam rested across Maya's chest. His voice became quieter, but the warning beneath it sharpened. "You need to watch your tone." My tone did not break the door. For a moment, no one moved. Splintered wood hung beside the damaged lock, and the pry tool they had used lay near Mercer's boot. The younger officer glanced down at it before looking away. Maya caught the movement. "You came through that door," she said. "Were you chasing anyone?" Neither officer replied. "Was someone inside calling for help?" Silence. "Was there an immediate threat to anyone's life?" Mercer shifted his weight, while Price's expression hardened. "We don't have to explain police procedure to you. You do when your procedure begins with breaking into my home." Price turned his back on her and faced the SUV. His refusal to answer had not weakened his confidence. It had only made him more determined to assert control. Maya watched him reach for the slender instrument. "You still have not verified the plate." Mercer spoke carefully. "Sergeant, we can run the registration first." Price ignored him and pushed the blade between the glass and the rubber seal around the driver's window. "You have no warrant," Maya said. He worked the steel deeper. "You have identified no emergency." The mechanism clicked faintly inside the door. "You have not confirmed that this vehicle was reported stolen." Price pressed down, and the lock released. He turned his head toward Maya. There was no uncertainty in his expression, only the quiet satisfaction of a man who believed the badge on his chest had already settled the argument. "We'll conduct the investigation as we see fit." He pulled the handle. The driver's door opened, and the SUV's alarm erupted through the enclosed garage. Mercer flinched at the sudden noise, but Price leaned into the vehicle and opened the glove compartment without hesitation. Maya remained at the kitchen entrance. "You are searching my car without permission." Price removed a registration folder and tossed it onto the passenger seat before opening the center console. He searched methodically, moving through Maya's belongings without urgency, as though her presence had no bearing on what he was doing. Mercer looked from the broken garage door to Maya, and then back to Price. "Sergeant," he said quietly. Price continued searching. Over the alarm, Maya raised her voice only enough to be heard. "Did you see anything illegal before opening the vehicle?" Price pulled a small pouch from the console. No. Did you receive confirmation that this vehicle was stolen? He did not answer. Did dispatch give you the owner's name? Price pushed the pouch aside. Stop talking. Did they? He turned toward her, annoyance now clear in his eyes. This attitude is not helping you. Maya held his gaze. My attitude is not evidence. The answer left no room for him to twist her words. Price stared at her for another second, then turned back to the SUV. Mercer tried again. Ma'am, if this is your vehicle, we can clear it up. It is my vehicle. Then show us the registration. Your sergeant just removed it from the glove compartment. Mercer looked toward the folder lying on the passenger seat. Price followed his gaze, picked it up, and opened it. His eyes moved across the document. Maya did not look away. Read, the registered owner. Price closed the folder. We still have to complete the search. Why? Officer safety. You are standing inside an empty garage. The vehicle is turned off. No one is inside it, and the owner is directly in front of you. Price threw the registration back onto the seat. What danger are you claiming now? Maya asked. He did not answer. Instead, he leaned into the SUV and opened the storage compartment beneath the passenger seat. The alarm continued to pulse through the garage, filling every silence he left behind. Mercer moved closer to the vehicle. Sergeant, the address on the registration. I saw it. It matches this house. I said I saw it. Maya studied both men. Mercer's discomfort was visible now, but it had not yet become courage. Price, meanwhile, seemed to draw confidence from every line he crossed without consequence. So the vehicle belongs here, Maya said. Price straightened. We're not finished. With what? He turned the flashlight toward her again. With determining whether you belong here. Mercer looked down. Maya did not. The implication hung in the narrow space between them, stripped of every excuse Price had used since she opened the door. You confirmed the registration, she said. Price remained silent. You confirmed the address. His grip tightened around the flashlight. You know this is my garage, and you are continuing the search anyway. A faint smile appeared on his face. You can file a complaint in the morning. Maya's expression did not change. Price mistook that stillness for helplessness and turned back toward the SUV, opening another compartment. She watched every movement, each unanswered question, every contradiction and every deliberate choice. The officers had no warrant. They had identified no emergency. They had found no stolen vehicle. They had broken the garage lock, forced open the SUV, and confirmed that both the property and the vehicle belonged to Maya. Price continued because he believed his report would matter more than the truth. The piercing siren kept sounding. Maya remained in the doorway, her eyes fixed on him. Keep going, Sergeant. Price paused and looked back. Maya met his stare, her calm voice cutting clean through the noise. I want there to be no confusion later about what you chose to do. Chapter 2. The Woman Who Would Not Step Back. Price held Maya's gaze for another second, then turned back to the SUV and reached farther beneath the passenger seat. The alarm continued to fill the garage, but he showed no urgency to silence it. He wanted the noise. It made questions harder to hear, and gave him another excuse to act without answering them. Mercer moved toward the open driver's door. Sergeant, we've confirmed the owner and the address. We should stop and call this in. Price withdrew his hand. What we should do is finish the search. Based on what? Price looked at him sharply. Based on my judgment. Maya watched Mercer lower his eyes. His doubt was clear, but doubt without action still left Price in control. She reached into her pocket and silenced the alarm with her phone. The sudden quiet tightened the atmosphere inside the garage. Every breath and movement became clear. Price's attention shifted to the device in her hand. I told you to stop recording. You told me to stop talking. Give me the phone. No. Price stepped away from the SUV. This is an active investigation. If that phone contains evidence, I can secure it. What evidence? That is not for you to determine. You have not identified a crime. We received a report. You cannot describe the vehicle in that report. Price took another step. Hand it over. Maya remained at the kitchen entrance. Do you have a warrant for my phone? I do not need one to prevent interference. How is standing in my own doorway interference? You are obstructing 2 officers. I have not touched either of you. I have not entered the garage. I have not blocked your movement. You are refusing lawful instructions. An instruction does not become lawful because you say it loudly. Mercer drew a slow breath. Sergeant, let's wait for a supervisor. I am the supervisor on scene. Then request a watch commander. Price ignored him and fixed his eyes on Maya's phone. Last chance. Give it to me. Maya lowered the device to her side, not hiding it and not offering it. No. Price moved without warning. Crossing the space quickly, he lunged straight for her wrist. Maya shifted a fraction to the side, turning her forearm out of his grasp and smoothly guiding his hand past her. When he tried to recover his balance, she caught his wrist, locked his elbow, and redirected his own momentum until he had no stable path forward. Within seconds, Price stood facing away from her, his arms secured in a seamless, non-injurious lock. Maya did not force the joint or drive him against the wall. She had simply stripped away his ability to strike or reach for her again. Mercer froze. Let him go, he said. He is not being harmed. Price tried to turn, but Maya adjusted her grip just enough to stop the movement. Take your hands off me, he said through clenched teeth. I will. As soon as you stop trying to take my property. You are assaulting a police officer. No. You reached for me without consent or legal authority. I moved out of the way and stopped you from doing it again. Her voice remained level. Price's breathing had changed, not from pain, but from the shock of losing control in front of his partner. Maya released him and stepped back into the kitchen. Price immediately turned, checking his sleeve and wrist. There was no injury, no mark, and no damage he could point to. Only Mercer's silence confirmed what had happened. Maya held the phone at her side. I am not attacking you, she said. I am stopping you from taking my property. If you admire Maya for standing her ground and calmly defending her rights against an abuse of power, please like this video. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from, because someone near you may be watching Maya's story with you right now. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this one. Price straightened his uniform. Humiliation hardened his expression. You think a few classes make you untouchable? I think the law makes my home private. The law also allows us to investigate suspicious circumstances, then identify the suspicious circumstance. You. Mercer looked at him. Maya's expression did not change. Explain. Price gestured vaguely toward the property in the SUV. You expect us to believe this all belongs to you? The registration explicitly says it does. Paperwork can be manipulated. You verified the address. An address can be easily looked up. I opened the door from inside the house. That proves you had access. Maya let the answer settle before asking, would you be making the same assumptions if someone else were standing here? Price gave a dismissive laugh. There it is. You want to turn this into a racial issue because you do not like being questioned. You have questioned nothing. You broke a lock, forced open a vehicle, read the registration, and continued searching after confirming ownership. We see expensive cars connected to criminal activity every day. What criminal activity have you connected to this one? Price did not answer. Maya continued. You said someone like me does not naturally own a house like this. What did you mean? I did not say that. You said a young person like me does not own this property without something needing to be explained. I said, the circumstances were unusual. Which circumstances? Price's jaw tightened. My age? Silence. The house? No answer. The vehicle? Mercer glanced toward the broken door. My race? Price lifted the flashlight again but did not aim it directly at her. Do not put words in my mouth. I am giving you an opportunity to clarify your own. I do not owe you an explanation. You entered my home. You owe me several. Price stepped back toward the SUV, but his confidence had changed. The same arrogance remained, now mixed with caution. Maya had shown him that he could not seize the phone, frighten her into silence, or rely on vague language without being challenged. He opened the rear passenger door. Mercer moved between him and the vehicle. Sergeant, stop. Price stared at him. Move. We verified the registration. There is no emergency. We do not have a warrant. You want to question my orders in front of her? I am asking for legal grounds. Price leaned closer to him. Your job is to watch the scene, not lecture me. Mercer hesitated, then stepped aside. Maya saw the choice clearly. Mercer knew the search was wrong, yet the fear of opposing Price outweighed the duty attached to his badge. Price opened a storage pocket behind the driver's seat and removed a leather case. What is this? Something that belongs to me. He unzipped it and found charging cables, vehicle documents, and a small emergency flashlight. Nothing illegal. He dropped it onto the seat. Maya asked, "How many empty compartments will you search before you admit there was never a stolen vehicle?" Price turned toward her. "I will decide when we are finished." "You already decided before you entered." His eyes narrowed. "You knew what you wanted to find," Maya continued. "That is why you arrived before verifying the plate. That is why your body cameras are off. That is why you cut the power." Mercer's head lifted. Price said, "Careful. Is that a warning?" "It is advice." "No. Advice is given for someone's benefit. You are trying to protect yourself." A vehicle turned into the driveway. White headlights swept across the broken garage entrance and moved over Price's face. Mercer looked outside. "Captain Keller." Price's shoulders eased. He believed authority had arrived to restore his control. Maya placed her phone back into her pocket and watched the dark police SUV stop near the damaged door. Price looked at her with renewed confidence. "Now," he said, "you are going to learn how this actually works." Maya remained still as the driver's door opened outside. "That," she said quietly, "is exactly what I have been waiting to see." Captain Grant Keller entered the garage without knocking. He was broad-shouldered, silver-haired, and dressed in a dark command jacket over his uniform. His eyes moved first to Price, then to Mercer, then to the broken side door. He noticed the pry tool on the floor and the open SUV, yet his expression did not change. "What happened?" he asked. Price answered before Mercer could speak. "Possible stolen vehicle." Homeowner became confrontational and interfered with the search. Maya remained at the kitchen entrance. They broke the garage lock before verifying the plate. Keller looked at her for the first time. His gaze was measured rather than openly hostile, but there was no surprise in it. "You're the homeowner?" "Yes." "And the vehicle belongs to you?" "Your officers have already confirmed that." Keller glanced toward the registration folder on the passenger seat. "Then, I'm sure we can clear this up. You can begin by explaining why 2 officers entered private property without a warrant." Instead of answering, Keller walked to the damaged side entrance and pulled the door shut. The broken frame resisted, but he forced it into place until the view from the driveway disappeared. Maya watched him. "Why did you close the door?" "For privacy." "Whose privacy?" Keller turned back to her. "Miss Williams, I understand that this looks troubling. It does not merely look troubling. We received information about a stolen vehicle." "What vehicle?" Keller paused. "What make?" Maya asked. "What model? What plate?" "This is not an interrogation. No. It is a request for the information that supposedly justified breaking into my garage." Keller's tone remained controlled. "Police work is not always neat. Officers sometimes have to make decisions quickly. Was someone being chased?" "No." "Was anyone in danger?" "Not that I'm aware of." "Then, what required a quick decision?" Price stepped forward. "Captain, she has been combative from the moment we arrived." Maya looked at him. "You arrived before speaking to me." Price's mouth tightened. Keller raised one hand. "Enough. I am trying to prevent this from becoming more complicated than it needs to be. It became complicated when your officers forced the door. Which can be repaired." The answer came too quickly. Maya studied him. "Are you offering to pay for the damage before determining whether your officers acted legally?" Keller gave a restrained sigh. "I'm saying the city can address the physical damage. We can replace the lock, repair the vehicle, and resolve this without turning a misunderstanding into a public spectacle. I have not asked for money. I'm trying to be practical." "You are trying to negotiate before documenting what happened." Price folded his arms. Mercer remained near the SUV, silent and tense. Keller softened his voice. "You seem like an intelligent woman. You know how complaints work. They take time. They become public. Names get printed. Careers are affected. Sometimes reputations are damaged, even when no policy was violated. Maya did not move. Whose reputation are you concerned about? I am concerned about everyone involved. Then, order your officers to stop searching my vehicle. Keller glanced at Price but gave no command. Maya continued. Ask Sergeant Price why his body camera is not recording. Keller's eyes shifted to the dark device on Price's chest. Technical issue, Price said. And Officer Mercer's? Mercer looked down at his own camera. It wasn't activated. Keller's face remained composed. We will review that internally. Who authorized the entry? My officers were acting under my command. Maya tilted her head slightly. Then you accept responsibility for everything they have done tonight? Keller met her gaze. He believed the answer would end the argument. I accept responsibility for my unit. The words settled in the garage. Maya gave a small nod. Thank you for clarifying. For the first time, Keller seemed unsure why she had thanked him. Price turned back toward the SUV. His hand slipped inside his jacket and emerged holding a small plastic packet between two fingers. He moved with care, using his body to block Keller's view, then bent toward the storage compartment beneath the passenger seat. Mercer saw it, his eyes fixed on the packet. Maya saw it too. What did you just put inside my vehicle? She asked. Price straightened. The packet was no longer in his hand. I didn't put anything anywhere. You removed something from your jacket. You're mistaken. Mercer looked at Price, then at Maya. Keller stepped between them. This conversation is over. No, Maya said. It has finally become clear. Keller turned to Mercer. Find the home surveillance system. Mercer hesitated. Captain, you heard me. If she's been recording, we need to preserve the footage. Maya's voice remained steady. By removing it, by securing evidence. Mercer walked toward the electrical panel. He opened the metal cabinet and found the local storage unit mounted inside. Captain, this is private property. So is the alleged evidence. Remove it. Mercer looked at Maya. His discomfort had become visible, but he still obeyed. He disconnected the unit and held it in both hands. Price took out his department phone and began deleting images. Maya watched the screen, reflected in the SUV's window. Are you erasing photographs from an active investigation? I'm clearing corrupted files. You have not tested whether they are corrupted. Price slipped the phone into his pocket. Keller pulled out his radio and walked several feet away, lowering his voice. Dispatch. Adjust the incident start time to reflect the anonymous tip before unit arrival. Mark the initial entry as exigent response pending verification. A brief crackle answered him. Maya heard every word. Keller returned. This is your final opportunity to handle the matter quietly. Quietly for whom? For yourself. What happens if I refuse? You file a complaint. Internal Affairs reviews it. My officers submit reports. Evidence is evaluated. Then, a determination is made. By people who work for you. By professionals. Price gave Maya a faint smile. By morning, the only story left will be ours. Mercer looked at him sharply. Keller's expression hardened, but he did not correct Price. Instead, he faced Maya. You should learn when to let a misunderstanding end. Maya looked from the storage unit in Mercer's hands to Price's phone, then to the broken frame Keller had forced shut. Are you certain you erased everything? Price glanced around the garage with open confidence. The dark cameras, the disconnected unit, the closed door, the silent phone in Maya's pocket. There is nothing left for you to use. Keller motioned toward the exit. Price picked up the pry tool, while Mercer carried the storage unit. None of them documented the damage. None asked Maya to sign a statement. None offered a case number. They stepped into the driveway and walked toward their vehicles. Price looked back once before getting into the patrol car. The satisfaction had returned to his face. A minute later, the red taillights disappeared from the street. Maya stood alone beside the open SUV. The garage lock was broken. The storage compartments had been disturbed, and the alarm had finally gone silent. Price and Keller believed they had taken the evidence with them. They mistook Maya's silence for defeat. Maya waited until the last trace of the patrol cars had disappeared before moving deeper into the garage. She did not touch the pry tool marks, the open storage compartments, or the broken frame around the side entrance. Instead, she took out her phone and documented the scene in the order it had unfolded. First came the splintered wood beside the lock, then the marks left by the steel bar against the driver's window, the registration folder Price had thrown onto the passenger seat, and the compartments he had opened after confirming that the SUV belonged to her. She photographed the electrical panel, the empty space where the local storage unit had been mounted, and the exposed wires Mercer had disconnected under Keller's orders. When she reached the compartment beneath the passenger seat, Maya stopped. The space was empty, but the lining had been disturbed. Price had reached into that exact area after removing the small packet from his jacket. She photographed it from several angles, then recorded a short video showing the distance between the compartment and the place where he had been standing. She did not search for the packet. Moving anything now would give them room to claim she had contaminated the scene. The phone vibrated once in her hand. Its dark screen came alive. Secure. Mirror complete. Beneath the message, a green status bar showed that every second of video, audio, motion data, and system activity had been copied to a protected remote server. The transfer had begun the moment Maya touched the side of the phone 3 times. Cutting the power had only activated the backup channel. Removing the local storage unit had changed nothing. Price had taken the box. Keller had taken the record they could see. Neither man had touched the real evidence. A knock sounded at the front door. Maya checked the time before leaving the garage. It was after 2 in the morning. Through the entryway window, she recognized Ethan Cole standing beneath the porch light with a flashlight in one hand and a stainless steel coffee thermos in the other. She opened the door but kept the security chain fastened. "Miss Williams?" Ethan asked. "Are you all right?" "I'm safe. I saw the cruisers leave. I heard the alarm, and then everything went quiet." He looked past her toward the dark hallway. "Do you need me to call someone?" "Not yet." Ethan lowered his voice. "My doorbell camera caught part of it. Their cars came down the street without lights, and I didn't hear anything on the scanner until several minutes later." Maya studied him. Ethan was not a man who spoke carelessly. Before retiring, he had spent decades designing communication systems. He still listened to local dispatch channels every night, partly from habit and partly because he trusted patterns more than promises. "Did the recording save?" she asked. "Yes. Make 2 copies. Do not edit them, rename them, or send them to anyone." His expression tightened. "You think they'll come looking for it?" "I think they already believe they collected everything that matters." Ethan glanced toward the driveway. "I can bring the file over now. Keep it in your house tonight. I don't mind helping. I know. But I need the garage preserved, and I don't want anyone later claiming you entered the scene before it was documented." He nodded slowly. "All right. Also save the router logs from midnight onward. If either officer's equipment connected to a nearby network, the timestamps may matter." Ethan's eyes sharpened with professional interest. "I can do that. Do it offline. No cloud transfer yet." He gave a brief nod, then lifted the thermos. "I brought coffee." Despite herself, Maya almost smiled. "Keep it warm. I may need it later. You know where to find me." After Ethan returned across the street, Maya locked the front door and made one final pass through the garage. She recorded the position of every object, backed away, and left the interior light off. Only then did she place a call. Judge Helen Brooks answered on the 4th ring. "Maya, I need to see you." Helen did not ask whether it could wait until morning. "My office. 40 minutes. By 3:15, Maya was seated across from her in a narrow office near Old Town Alexandria. Shelves of aging law books covered one wall. Framed photographs from civil rights cases covered another. Helen wore a navy robe over a plain blouse and had tied a silk scarf around her silver hair. She poured coffee into 2 ceramic cups and placed a slice of apple pie between them. "You look too calm," Helen said. "I am calm. That is not the same thing." Maya wrapped both hands around the cup but did not drink. 2 officers broke into my garage, forced open my vehicle, searched it after confirming ownership, and tried to place something under the passenger seat. Their captain arrived, closed the door, ordered them to take the storage unit, and altered the incident timeline. Helen sat back. "Do they know who you are?" "No." "Do they suspect?" "No." "And you let them leave, believing the evidence was gone." Yes. Helen watched her for several seconds. You could have ended it in that garage. I could have used my title. You chose not to. I needed to know what they would do when they thought I had no influence. And now you know. Maya looked down at the untouched pie. That is the problem. If I bring this forward, everything changes the moment my name reaches the right office. People will say the system worked because it protected one of its own. Helen's voice softened. Did it protect you tonight? No. Did your title stop them from breaking the lock? No. Did it stop Price from searching the vehicle? No. Then do not confuse the power to expose an injustice with protection from it. Maya finally lifted the coffee. It had begun to cool. They will regret this when they learn who I am, she said. But that cannot be the reason they face consequences. Helen nodded. Justice that protects you. Only after it learns your title is not justice. The words settled between them. Maya looked toward the photographs on the wall. Most showed adults standing outside courthouses, some smiling, some exhausted, all carrying the weight of battles that had begun long before a judge entered the room. I can take this to a level they cannot control, Maya said. But I cannot be the person directing it. Then do not direct it. I become a witness. You become what every citizen should be allowed to become when the law is violated. Someone whose evidence is heard. Maya took out her phone and opened an encrypted channel. Before placing the call, she looked once more at Helen. If I do this, the investigation goes beyond my garage. It should. Maya pressed the secure contact. A man answered in a clear, alert voice. Bell, the data package is complete, Maya said. Begin independent protocol. There was no surprise on the other end. Understood. The connection ended. Maya set the phone beside her coffee and looked through the office window toward the first pale light gathering over Alexandria. By sunrise, Price and Keller would begin writing the version of events they believed would survive. They had no idea the truth had reached Washington before they even left her street. At 7:30 that morning, Maya entered the Robert F. Kennedy Department of Justice building through a secured employee entrance. She crossed the marble corridor without stopping and took a restricted elevator to a conference room with no windows, no public directory listing, and no wireless access. Marcus Bell was already seated at the far end of the table. At 53, he had spent most of his career investigating officials who believed public authority placed them beyond scrutiny. His dark suit was plain. His notes were arranged in exact rows, and a metal carafe of black coffee stood beside his closed laptop. 3 other people waited with him. A digital forensics specialist, an ethics attorney from the Office of Professional Responsibility, and Assistant United States Attorney Caroline Reed, who had been selected to evaluate the case independently. Marcus stood when Maya entered. Good morning, Special Counsel Williams. The title revealed what Nolan Price, Luke Mercer, and Grant Keller had failed to discover. Maya Williams was the special counsel to the United States Attorney General for Police Integrity. Her office advised the Attorney General on federal investigations involving unlawful searches, falsified police reports, disabled body cameras, evidence manipulation, and patterns of civil rights abuse within law enforcement agencies. At 28, she was the youngest person ever appointed to the position. That distinction appeared in official biographies and newspaper profiles, but Maya rarely mentioned it. Being young had never made the work easier. It had only forced her to enter every room more prepared than anyone expected. She placed her phone on the table. Before we begin, I am formally requesting recusal from every investigative and prosecutorial decision connected to this incident. Caroline opened a folder. That includes search applications, witness agreements, charging recommendations, plea discussions, and sentencing positions. All of it. Marcus studied her. You understand that you may still be interviewed as a victim and called as a witness. I do. You may also be asked to identify equipment, explain the security system, and authenticate certain actions you took inside the house. I will cooperate fully, but I will not direct the case. The ethics attorney slid a recusal statement toward her. Maya read every line before signing it. Marcus waited until the document had been witnessed and collected. Then, from this moment forward, you are not sitting here as the official responsible for police integrity policy. Maya met his eyes. I am sitting here as the woman whose garage they entered. That is how we will handle it. The digital specialist activated the main display. The screen showed a timestamp from shortly before 1 in the morning, followed by a clear image of the damaged garage door. Maya watched Price step through the opening. The footage had been captured from 3 concealed cameras built into the home's security system. A 4th camera inside the SUV recorded the driver's side of the garage, while the vehicle itself preserved door activity, alarm events, and changes to its electronic locks. The specialist paused the video. The officers removed the visible storage unit from the electrical cabinet. That unit contained a local copy, but it was never the primary archive. Caroline looked toward Maya. Explain the backup system. Maya kept her answer factual. Because of threats connected to my work, the house uses layered storage. The first level is local and obvious. The second remains dormant, unless it detects a power interruption, physical interference, or a manual command. The 3 taps on your phone? Marcus asked. Yes. That activated silent capture and transferred control to the secondary network. The specialist resumed the footage. Once activated, the system encrypted every file and transmitted it through an independent cellular channel. The officers could cut the household power, disconnect the router, or remove the storage box without interrupting the upload. Could Miss Williams alter the recordings after transmission? Caroline asked. No. Each segment received a digital timestamp and integrity signature before it reached the protected server. Any later change would be detectable. On the screen, Mercer stood near the electrical panel while Price forced the SUV's door. The sound was clear. You have no warrant, Maya's recorded voice said. Price continued working. You have identified no emergency. The lock clicked. You have not confirmed that this vehicle was reported stolen. No one in the conference room spoke as Price opened the door and began searching. Maya had remembered the noise, his expression, and the pressure behind every question. Watching it from across a polished government table made the incident feel both more distant and more exact. There was no confusion in the recording, no missing sequence that could be filled with convenient language later. Price had known the vehicle belonged to her. He had continued anyway. The video reached the moment when he moved toward Maya's phone. His arm extended, and she stepped aside, redirected his wrist, and controlled his movement without forcing him against the wall. The specialist slowed the footage. Contact begins here, he said. Sergeant Price initiates the movement. Miss Williams avoids the grasp, applies a controlled hold, releases him as soon as he stops reaching, and creates distance. Marcus looked at Maya. Any pain or injury reported by Price at the scene? No. Did he request medical assistance? No. Did he claim injury before Captain Keller arrived? No. The footage continued. Price returned to the SUV. Keller entered, closed the garage door, and offered to arrange repairs before conducting any inquiry. Then came the exchange. Marcus had already reviewed several times. Then you accept responsibility for everything they have done tonight? Maya asked on the recording. I accept responsibility for my unit, Keller replied. Caroline leaned forward. The next angle showed Price's hand entering his jacket. He removed a small plastic packet, concealed it against his palm, and moved toward the compartment beneath the passenger seat. The room became still. Marcus paused the video. Is there any legitimate reason for him to remove that packet from his clothing during the search? None that I can see, Caroline said. The specialist changed camera angles. From inside the SUV, Price's fingers were visible near the open compartment. Maya's question followed immediately. What did you just put inside my vehicle? I didn't put anything anywhere, Price answered. Marcus let the denial remain on the screen for several seconds before continuing. They watched Mercer remove the local storage unit. They heard Price claim he was deleting corrupted files. They heard Keller instruct dispatch to change the incident time and describe the entry as an emergency response. Finally, Price's voice filled the room. By morning, the only story left will be ours. The screen went dark. Caroline closed her folder slowly. This is not a misunderstanding. No, Marcus said. It is an unlawful entry, an unlawful search, possible evidence planting, records manipulation, and an organized attempt to conceal all of it. Maya looked at the blank screen. Do not build the case around my title. Marcus turned toward her. They violated my rights before they knew who I was, she continued. The investigation has to ask whether they have done this to people who could not reach this room by sunrise. Marcus opened his laptop. Then, that is where we begin. He entered Nolan Price's name into a federal case analysis system, followed by Mercer's and Keller's. Complaints, vehicle seizures, internal reviews, and closed disciplinary files began appearing across the display. The first pattern emerged within minutes. Marcus leaned closer to the screen. This did not start in your garage. Maya looked at the growing list of names. No, she said quietly. It only reached the wrong garage. By mid-morning, the conference room display held 5 years of complaints, vehicle seizures, dispatch records, and internal reviews connected to Nolan Price, Luke Mercer, and Captain Grant Keller. At first, the files appeared unrelated. A luxury sedan taken from a townhouse in Arlington, a pickup removed from a private garage in Fairfax, a sport utility vehicle seized outside a condominium in Alexandria. Different neighborhoods, different owners, different explanations. Then Marcus Bell began sorting the records by sequence rather than location. An anonymous call came first. The caller reported a stolen vehicle, suspicious property, or possible contraband hidden inside a car. Price and Mercer arrived soon afterward, often before the information had been fully entered into the dispatch system. Their body cameras either failed to activate or contained gaps during the initial search. A vehicle was opened, something illegal was supposedly found, and the car was sent to Blackstone Recovery. The owners filed complaints. Keller closed them. Caroline Reed stood beside the screen, reading the same phrases repeated across reports written months apart. Officer safety, she said. Exigent circumstances. Credible anonymous source. Probable cause developed during initial contact. Marcus nodded. Same language, same officers, same storage company. The digital specialist added another filter. Race and ethnicity appeared beside the names of the registered owners. The room grew quiet. Most were Black or Latino adults. Nearly all owned vehicles worth enough to produce substantial storage fees or resale value. Many lived in neighborhoods where officers could claim that an expensive car appeared out of place without ever writing those words into a report. Maya remained at the end of the table. She did not direct the review, but every pattern on the screen carried the shape of what had happened in her garage. Caroline opened one of the closed complaints. Denise Carter, 58, home health nurse at the time of seizure. Marcus read the summary. Vehicle searched after an anonymous tip. Controlled substance allegedly found beneath the passenger seat. Laboratory testing later came back inconclusive. What happened to the vehicle? Maya asked. The specialist checked the property record. Transferred to Blackstone. Storage fees exceeded $12,000. Sold through an affiliated auction company before the complaint review was completed. Caroline looked up. Was she ever charged? No. Was the vehicle returned? No. Marcus closed the file. Bring her in. Denise Carter arrived that afternoon wearing navy slacks, a cream blouse, and the faded blue jacket of a home care service that no longer employed her. She carried a metal tin of oatmeal cookies in both hands. I was raised not to visit people empty-handed, she explained when Caroline offered to take it. You didn't need to bring anything, Maya said. I know. That's different from saying I shouldn't. Denise studied Maya for a moment before sitting. Her expression held neither suspicion nor gratitude. It held exhaustion. Marcus introduced himself, Caroline, and the forensic specialist. Maya gave only her name. Denise placed a thick envelope on the table. I kept every paper they sent me, even the ones that contradicted the papers before them. Inside were towing notices, storage invoices, internal affairs letters, and photographs of a silver Lexus parked outside a modest brick home. Marcus opened his notebook. Tell us what happened from the beginning. Denise folded her hands. I had just finished an overnight shift. Price and Mercer were waiting near my driveway. They said someone reported a stolen car at my address. Did they identify the vehicle? They pointed at mine. Did they have a warrant? No. Price said he could see something suspicious through the window. What did he claim to see? A plastic bag beneath the passenger seat. Maya's eyes moved toward the photograph of the Lexus. Denise noticed. That is where your officer found something too, isn't it? He tried to place something there, Maya said. Denise gave a small nod. Price opened my door before I could stop him. Mercer stood near the driveway and told me to stay calm. They searched for almost 20 minutes. Then Price held up a bag and said he had found pills. Were they yours? Caroline asked. No. Were you arrested? They questioned me in the street, then let me go. They took the car. What did losing it cost you? Denise looked down at her hands. My patients lived across 3 counties. There is no bus route that takes you from Alexandria to a private home outside Centerville before sunrise. I missed appointments. The agency replaced me. Once I lost the job, I could not pay the storage fees. Marcus turned one of the internal affairs letters toward her. This says the complaint was closed because there was no independent evidence. There was Mercer. He supported Price's report. I know. The answer carried no anger. That made it heavier. Denise looked at Maya again. Why are they investigating yours? Maya did not avoid the question. Because the incident was recorded. That is not what I asked. The room remained still. Denise's gaze sharpened. Who are you? Maya answered plainly. I serve as special counsel to the United States Attorney General for Police Integrity. Recognition crossed Denise's face, followed by something colder. So they found your title. Not that night, but Washington knew by morning. Yes. Denise leaned back. They found your title and stepped back. They found my work badge and kept going. Maya accepted the words without defending herself. That difference, she said, is exactly what this investigation must correct. Denise studied her for several seconds, then pushed the envelope farther across the table. Then do not make this only about the people who still have documents. Some stopped keeping them because nobody listened. We will find them, Marcus said. Start with the towing invoices. Blackstone charged me for days before my car arrived there. The forensic specialist immediately pulled up the records. The dates did not match. According to Blackstone, Denise's vehicle had entered storage almost 36 hours before Price claimed to have searched it. Marcus looked toward the screen. That is not a billing error. No, Maya said. It means the vehicle was selected before the search. A secure message arrived from Ethan Cole while Denise was still in the room. He had copied the doorbell footage and preserved the network logs exactly as Maya requested. The video showed Price and Mercer's patrol car entering Maya's street several minutes before the anonymous tip appeared in dispatch. The router data revealed something more. A department-issued device assigned to Price had attempted to connect to a nearby public network from outside Maya's house. The timestamp placed him there before any official call authorized his presence. Caroline compared the time with Denise's records. They were not responding to reports. Marcus nodded. They were creating reports around vehicles they had already chosen. The specialist opened Blackstone's corporate filings. The company appeared to belong to a series of holding groups, each registered under a different name. He followed the payments through 3 accounts before reaching a property trust. One beneficiary appeared repeatedly. Grant Keller. Denise stared at the screen. The captain who denied my complaint was making money from the place that kept my car? Marcus closed the file slowly. That is what we are going to prove. Maya looked at the rows of names now filling the display. Each represented an adult who had lost transportation, income, savings, or faith in a system that had promised to hear them. The broken locks were no longer property damage. Each one had a name. 2 days later, Nolan Price and Grant Keller arrived at a federal office building in Alexandria, believing they had been called to an administrative review. Keller carried a leather folder containing the report he had prepared. Price wore his uniform, his badge polished, his body camera properly activated for the first time since the night at Maya's house. Mercer had been ordered to remain at the precinct. Keller considered that a precaution. Price considered it an insult. They're trying to make this look larger than it is, Price said, as they waited outside the conference room. A damaged lock, an uncooperative homeowner, and a search based on a credible tip. Keller kept his voice low. Do not call her uncooperative unless you are asked about her conduct. She interfered. She asked questions. She put her hands on me. You reached for her phone. Price turned toward him. Whose side are you on? The side that keeps this department out of federal court. The door opened, and a staff attorney invited them inside. The conference room was smaller than Keller expected. Marcus Bell sat near the center of the table with Caroline Reed beside him. Two digital forensics specialists occupied the far end. A recorder had been placed in clear view. Maya Williams sat by the wall. She wore a dark navy suit and carried no visible badge. Her expression was composed, almost detached. Keller assumed she had been invited as the complaining homeowner. Price barely looked at her. Marcus gestured toward the empty chairs. "Captain Keller, Sergeant Price, please sit." Keller placed his folder on the table. "Before we begin, I want the record to reflect that my department has already opened an internal review." "The record will reflect it," Marcus said. "We are prepared to cooperate fully. That will also be reflected." Price leaned back in his chair. "Then perhaps someone can explain why the FBI is involved in a routine property complaint." Marcus looked at him. "We will get there." Keller opened his folder. "I have the preliminary incident report, dispatch summary, and statements from both officers. The homeowner became verbally confrontational and attempted to interfere with an emergency vehicle verification." Maya said nothing. Marcus turned one page in front of him. "Emergency? We received an anonymous report concerning a stolen vehicle. What make?" Keller paused. The caller did not provide complete details. "What model?" That information was unclear. "What license plate?" The call disconnected before dispatch could obtain one. Marcus looked toward Price. "Yet you entered the garage." Price answered quickly. The vehicle matched the general description. "What description?" "Dark sport utility vehicle." Caroline glanced at the report. "Your written statement says midnight blue luxury SUV." "That is correct. The anonymous call was entered into dispatch after you arrived on Maya Williams's street." Price's posture changed slightly. "Dispatch delays happen. Your patrol vehicle entered Rosemont 6 minutes before the report appeared in the system. We were already in the area. You were parked outside her house before the call existed." Keller closed his folder. "Are we here to discuss technical timing discrepancies? Or are we here to resolve a complaint?" Marcus folded his hands. "We are here because this is no longer an internal complaint." Keller looked toward Maya. "Miss Williams, I understand you are upset. The city remains willing to repair the garage and the vehicle. There is no reason to turn a correctable misunderstanding into a conflict between agencies." Maya met his eyes but did not respond. Price gave a faint smile. She did not seem interested in being reasonable that night either. Caroline looked toward Marcus. He nodded once. "This is Maya Williams," Marcus said. "Special Counsel to the United States Attorney General for Police Integrity." The smile disappeared from Price's face. Keller remained still, but his fingers tightened around the edge of the folder. Marcus continued. "Her office advises the Attorney General on federal investigations involving unlawful police searches, falsified reports, disabled body cameras, evidence manipulation, and systemic civil rights violations." Price looked at Maya as though seeing her for the first time. "You never identified yourself," he said. "I identified myself as the homeowner," Maya replied. "You concealed your federal position. I was standing inside my own house. I was not required to present a resume before asking why you broke into my garage." Keller cleared his throat. "Special Counsel Williams, had we known." Maya's eyes hardened. "Finish that sentence carefully." Keller stopped. Marcus spoke before the silence became an escape. "Miss Williams has recused herself from every investigative and prosecutorial decision in this matter. She is here as the victim and as a witness." Price leaned forward. "Then this is still her word against ours." Marcus touched a control on the table. A speaker activated. Price's recorded voice filled the room. "By morning, the only story left will be ours." No one moved. The recording continued. Keller's voice followed. "I accept responsibility for my unit." Then came the sound of the garage door being forced shut, the click of the electrical cabinet opening, and Keller instructing dispatch to alter the incident start time. Price stared at the speaker. Keller turned toward Maya. "Where did you get that?" Marcus answered. "The question is not where we obtained it. The question is whether those are your voices. That recording may be incomplete," Keller said. Caroline opened another file. "It is complete. It has been authenticated, time-stamped, and preserved through an independent system." Price looked at Maya. The storage unit was removed. Yes, she said. We secured it as evidence. You took the box. Her voice remained quiet. You did not take the truth. For the first time, Keller's composure broke. Not completely, but enough for Maya to see calculation replace confidence. Price recovered faster. Even if the recording is genuine, it does not prove criminal intent. We had a report. We acted on it. Marcus activated the screen behind him. A still image appeared. It showed Price's hand inside his jacket, holding a small plastic packet before he bent toward the passenger seat. The next frame showed the packet against his palm. The third showed his hand entering the open compartment. Price's face drained of color. Keller looked at him. What is that? Price did not answer. Marcus closed the image. This meeting is not an interrogation. You are free to leave. However, you are now under formal notice to preserve all records, communications, financial documents, dispatch data, vehicle seizure files, and material connected to Blackstone recovery. At the company's name, Keller's eyes shifted toward Price. The movement lasted less than a second. It was enough, Marcus noticed. So did Maya. Keller stood and gathered his folder. We will have counsel respond. That would be wise, Caroline said. Price rose more slowly. He looked toward Maya, searching for fear, anger, or satisfaction. She gave him none. His regret had arrived, but not because he understood what he had done. He regretted choosing a woman whose name could open doors he had spent years keeping closed. Keller led him into the hallway. Once the conference room door shut behind them, Price lowered his voice. How much do they have? Enough to know about Blackstone. Then we move everything tonight. Keller looked back at the closed door. Not everything. What do you mean? We erase it. They walked toward the elevator, already planning how to destroy the evidence they still believed they controlled. By the following morning, the first edited video had already reached 3 local television stations. It began after Price had crossed the garage. The opening moments, his attempt to seize Maya's phone, her warning, and the questions that had cornered him were missing. The clip showed only Maya redirecting his arm and holding him in place while Mercer stood nearby. A caption beneath the video read, "Federal official uses martial arts on local police during vehicle investigation." The word official appeared before Maya's position had been publicly confirmed, which told Marcus Bell that the leak had come from someone close to Keller. Maya watched the clip from a conference room at the Department of Justice. The footage ended before she released Price, leaving viewers with the impression that she had restrained him longer than necessary. Caroline Reed muted the television. They cut 23 seconds from the beginning and 11 from the end, she said. Without those sections, it looks very different. That was the purpose, Marcus replied. Maya kept her eyes on the frozen image. They are not trying to prove their report. They are trying to make the public stop caring whether the report was true. Her phone vibrated with another message. A national cable producer wanted an interview. A radio host had invited her to explain why a federal official had attacked a police sergeant. 2 online commentators had already accused her of using government power to intimidate local law enforcement. Marcus closed the laptop. Do not respond yet. I was not planning to. That may become difficult. It already is. Across Alexandria, Keller's department released a formal statement describing the incident as a lawful investigation complicated by an unidentified resident who had refused instructions and used a trained physical maneuver against an officer. The statement did not mention the broken garage lock. It did not mention the missing warrant. It did not mention the packet in Price's hand. It did not mention that the officers had confirmed Maya owned the house and the vehicle before continuing the search. By noon, the shortened video had been replayed more often than the facts had been reported. The pressure did not stop with Maya. Ethan Cole received a notice from the city questioning whether recent electrical work on his home had been properly permitted. 2 hours later, another letter arrived, requesting an inspection of the security cameras mounted near his front porch. He called Maya from his kitchen. I have lived in this house for 27 years, he said. No one has ever asked about those cameras. Do not remove them. I wasn't going to. Keep every letter. Photograph the envelopes. Do not discuss the footage with anyone who comes to your door. Ethan was quiet for a moment. They want me nervous. They want you uncertain about what cooperation will cost. I am already certain. About what? That I saw 2 police cars arrive before the dispatch call. I am too old to pretend a clock says something it does not. Maya allowed herself a brief smile. Then, preserve the clock. Denise Carter received a different kind of warning. Blackstone Recovery mailed her a demand for unpaid storage fees on a vehicle that had been sold years earlier. The amount had grown through penalties, administrative charges, and collection costs until it exceeded what the car had been worth. Denise brought the letter to Marcus in person. "They cannot collect this," he said after reading it. "I know. Then why did you come in?" "Because they know I spoke to you." Maya sat beside her. "This is intimidation." Denise folded the letter along its original crease. "It is also familiar. They take something, send paperwork afterward, and make you spend years proving the paperwork should never have existed." Caroline entered with another folder. "We found 16 older complaints that were relabeled as customer disputes with towing companies. That kept them out of the civil rights review system." "Who changed the labels?" Marcus asked. "Keller's administrative office." Maya looked toward Denise. "They are trying to bury the pattern again." Denise placed the collection letter on the table. "Then stop letting them make me a background character in your story." Maya absorbed the words. Denise continued, not unkindly. "Every headline says they broke into the garage of a federal official. That makes people angry because they chose the wrong woman. What about the rest of us? Were we the right people to rob?" "No," Maya said. "Then say that." Later that afternoon, the Department of Justice Communications Office advised Maya to avoid public comment. Her own supervisors asked her to step away temporarily from other police integrity matters until the appearance of conflict had been addressed. The decision was procedurally correct. It still felt like a reward for Keller's strategy. By evening, Maya sat across from Judge Helen Brooks in her Old Town office. Rain tapped against the window, while Helen poured coffee and placed 2 slices of pecan pie on small white plates. Maya did not touch hers. "They have turned a forced entry into a debate about my reaction," she said. "Every hour I remain visible, the story becomes more about my position." Helen stirred her coffee. "And if you disappear, they lose their easiest target. They also keep the microphone." Maya leaned back. "Maybe the story would be cleaner if I disappeared from it." Helen set down the spoon. "Silence does not remain neutral," she said. "It leans toward whoever already has power. I do not want Denise reduced to evidence that supports what happened to me. Then do not speak only about yourself. I have been advised not to discuss the investigation. You do not need to discuss evidence. You need to discuss principle." The next morning, Maya stood before a small group of reporters outside the federal building. She did not bring the broken lock. She did not display the damaged vehicle. She did not mention the secret recording system or the packet Price had carried into her garage. She spoke for less than 3 minutes. "This is not a dispute about whether I was polite enough while 2 officers entered my property," she said. "It is about whether any citizen should have to prove personal importance before the law respects a locked door." The reporters fell silent. Maya continued, "Other adults lost vehicles, income, and years of savings after searches built on the same language and the same missing records. Their occupations should not determine whether they are believed. Their addresses should not determine whether their rights matter. Their race should not determine whether ownership looks suspicious." A reporter called out, "Are you using your federal position to target the officers involved?" "No. I have recused myself from the investigation. Independent prosecutors and investigators will follow the evidence." "Did you assault Sergeant Price?" "The complete recording shows what occurred. A shortened version does not become true because it is replayed more often." She stepped away without taking further questions. The statement changed the tone of the coverage, but it did not stop Keller's campaign. More documents were mislabeled. More witnesses received official-looking warnings. More commentators repeated the edited footage. At the precinct, Luke Mercer watched the full garage recording on a monitor while the shortened version played silently on a television mounted near the ceiling. He could see the difference. He had been there for the missing seconds. He had watched Price reach for Maya's phone. He had watched her release him without injury. He had watched Keller order the evidence removed, and the timeline changed. Price entered the room, and placed a new report on the desk. "Sign it," he said. Mercer read the first page. The report described Maya as physically aggressive and claimed Price had entered the SUV only after fearing she was concealing evidence. That isn't what happened. Price pulled out the chair opposite him. It is what the record needs to say. Mercer looked at the signature line. For years, he had believed silence kept him outside Price's misconduct. Now the empty space waiting for his name told him otherwise. Luke Mercer left the unsigned report on Price's desk and walked out of the precinct without saying where he was going. At 2:15 the next morning, he entered a 24-hour diner near Springfield and chose a booth at the back. The place was nearly empty. Two older men sat near the window with newspapers folded beside their coffee cups, while a waitress moved between the tables, topping off mugs without being asked. Marcus Bell arrived 5 minutes later. He did not offer a handshake. He slid into the seat across from Mercer and placed his phone face down on the table. "You said you had information." Mercer watched the waitress fill his cup. He waited until she moved away before speaking. "I need protection." "From whom?" "Price. Keller. Anyone still loyal to them." Marcus added no sympathy to his voice. "What kind of protection are you asking for?" "Full immunity." "No." Mercer stared at him. "You have not even heard what I know. I heard your condition. The answer is no. You need someone inside. We need the truth. That does not mean you get to choose the consequences." Mercer wrapped both hands around his coffee but did not drink. "I never planted anything. You stood there while Price did. I did not know everything at first." "When did you know?" Mercer looked toward the front counter. "The third search." Marcus waited. It was a Mercedes in Fairfax. Price said he saw a packet beneath the seat, but I had watched him put his hand inside his jacket before he opened the door. I told myself I had not seen clearly. "And after that?" "I saw clearly." "How many times?" Mercer's voice dropped. "More than 10. Marcus remained still. "What did you do?" "I watched the street. I kept the owners away from the cars. Sometimes I turned off my camera. Sometimes I wrote that the door was already open." "You signed false reports." "Yes." "You supported Price when citizens complained." "Yes." "You helped Keller close those complaints." "I signed what they gave me." Marcus leaned slightly forward. "That sentence does not reduce your responsibility." Mercer's jaw tightened. "I came here voluntarily. You came here after Price handed you a report designed to spread the blame." Mercer looked up sharply. Marcus continued. "Do you think we do not know what they are doing? You do not know how this department works. I know exactly how institutions protect themselves. The first person sacrificed is usually the one who believed obedience made him safe." The waitress returned and placed a small glass of water beside Marcus. Mercer waited until she left again. "If I give you Blackstone," he said, "you can prove all of it. Then give it to us. Not without immunity." Marcus shook his head once. "No." The answer settled between them. A few minutes later, Maya entered the diner. She wore a dark coat over her suit and carried nothing but a thin folder. Mercer watched her approach, then looked at Marcus. "You brought her?" She asked to hear the part that concerns the night at her house. Maya sat beside Marcus. "I am not here to negotiate with you." Mercer gave a bitter laugh. "That must be convenient." "No. Convenient would be pretending your cooperation erases what you did. I did not break into your garage. You stood inside it. I told Price to verify the registration. And when he refused?" Mercer looked down. Maya continued. "You watched him force open the vehicle. You watched him reach into his jacket. You carried away the storage unit after Keller ordered you to. I was following commands. You were wearing the same badge." Mercer's expression hardened. "You have no idea what happens when an officer turns on his own unit." "You are right," Maya said. "But I know what happened when you chose the unit over everyone it harmed." He pushed the coffee away. "I can give you names, access codes, payment records, and the schedule for moving the vehicles. That has value." "It does." "Then give me immunity." Maya held his gaze. "The truth is not a product you can trade for innocence." Mercer stood so quickly that the table shifted, though nothing spilled. "Then find someone else." Marcus did not try to stop him. Mercer left the diner and drove back toward Alexandria. By the time he reached the precinct, Price and Keller were waiting in a closed briefing room. The new report lay on the table. Keller pointed to the empty signature line. "You will sign this before your shift ends." Mercer read the revised account. It now claimed he had received the anonymous tip, selected Maya's address, and advised Price that the vehicle matched a stolen car notice. It also stated that Mercer had located the garage entrance and believed immediate entry was necessary. "This makes it look like the operation was mine." Price folded his arms. "You were the responding officer. You told me where to drive. You cannot prove that." Mercer looked at Keller. "You approved the entry." Keller's voice remained calm. "I arrived afterward. My actions were based on the information you and Price provided. You said you accepted responsibility for the unit. I said many things while trying to calm an agitated homeowner." Mercer turned to Price. "You told me we were protected." "We are," Price said. "As long as everyone stays disciplined." "By discipline, you mean I take the blame." Price stepped closer to the table. "I mean you remember who trained you, who defended you, and who kept mistakes out of your file." Mercer looked at the report again. Near the bottom, Price had written that Mercer alone had handled all communication with the anonymous caller. They had not merely prepared to abandon him. They had already written the story. Mercer returned to his apartment and opened the box where he kept copies of old commendations, evaluations, and field notes. Beneath them were duplicate reports from searches he had participated in. Each carried his signature. He read the names of the owners one by one. Denise Carter, Miguel Alvarez, Terrence Boyd, Angela Ruiz. Adults who had lost vehicles, work, savings, and years of their lives. While Mercer told himself that standing nearby was not the same as participating. By dawn, the excuse no longer worked. He called Marcus. "I will cooperate." Marcus's answer was immediate. "Without a promise of immunity?" "Yes." "What are you prepared to provide?" "Blackstone access codes, vehicle transfer schedules, Keller's private account list, the numbers used for the anonymous calls, messages between Price and the towing manager." "Will you testify?" Mercer closed his eyes. "Yes." "Will you accept responsibility for the reports you signed?" The silence lasted several seconds. "Yes." Marcus gave him an address and a time. Before ending the call, Mercer asked, "What happens to me?" "That will be decided later." For once, Mercer did not ask for certainty. He looked at the unsigned report Price had ordered him to complete, then tore the blank signature page free and placed it beside the old reports bearing his name. He could not undo the years he had spent standing watch. He could only stop protecting the men who had taught him to look away. Mercer met Marcus Bell that afternoon in a secure interview room and placed 3 items on the table: a handwritten list of access codes, a flash drive containing copied messages, and a printed schedule for moving vehicles out of Blackstone recovery. Marcus examined the schedule first. "When is the next transfer?" "Saturday night," Mercer said. "Price and Keller use weekends because the administrative staff is gone. They plan to reset the servers, close the accounting accounts, and move the remaining vehicles before Monday." "Who believes you will be there?" "Both of them." Marcus looked up. "Do they know you spoke to us?" "No." "Can you maintain that?" Mercer's expression tightened. "Long enough." Maya watched from behind the observation glass. She had no role in the interview and offered no instruction. Caroline Reed stood beside her, reading the messages as they appeared on a separate monitor. One exchange from Keller was brief. "Clean the inventory before sunrise. No loose files." Another came from Price. "Once the records are gone. She has a video of a bad search and nothing more." Caroline folded her arms. "They still think this begins and ends in Maya's garage. They need to keep thinking that," Marcus said through the intercom. Over the next 3 days, the FBI obtained court approval to monitor Blackstone's internal systems and preserve any data targeted for deletion. The order remained sealed. A technical team worked with the company that had installed Blackstone's vehicle management software, creating a hidden mirror of every active database. The system was simple in principle. Every action performed at Blackstone would be copied before it took effect. If Keller deleted a file, the original would reach the federal server first. If Price changed a vehicle record, both versions would be preserved. If an account was closed, The transaction history would remain intact. The men could erase every screen in the building and still create a complete record of their own concealment. Saturday arrived cold and clear. At 9:40 that evening, Keller's unmarked SUV entered Blackstone through the eastern gate. Price followed in his patrol vehicle 6 minutes later. Mercer arrived last. The facility occupied several acres near Lorton, surrounded by a steel fence and monitored by cameras mounted along the perimeter. Rows of seized vehicles stood beneath security lights, their windshields marked with inventory numbers. Some had remained there for months. Others were scheduled to disappear before morning. Keller waited inside the control room. "You're late," he told Mercer. "Traffic on the interstate." Price closed the door behind him. "Did anyone follow you?" "No." "Phone." Mercer handed it over. Price powered it down and placed it inside a metal cabinet with his own. Keller did the same. "No calls until we finish," Keller said. Mercer glanced at the bank of monitors. "What exactly are we doing?" Keller opened a black binder. "Resetting an unreliable system before federal investigators misunderstand incomplete records." Price smiled. "We're cleaning house." The first task involved the vehicle database. Keller logged in with his administrative credentials and opened the list of cars connected to disputed seizures. He selected 23 records and changed their status from law enforcement hold to owner abandoned. On Keller's screen, the changes appeared final. On a federal server miles away, the original records and the altered versions arrived together, each carrying his username and an exact timestamp. Price moved to the financial terminal. He opened a series of accounts that had received storage payments, auction proceeds, and transfer fees. Several were connected to companies that existed only on paper. "Which ones?" he asked. "All accounts linked to the old trust," Keller said. "Export the balances, then close them." Price entered the commands. Before each account disappeared from the screen, its complete history was copied into federal storage. Mercer stood beside a filing cabinet, pretending to sort towing manifests. A small transmitter hidden inside his belt sent clear audio to the surveillance team outside the property. Keller noticed him watching. "Problem?" "No. You look nervous." "I've never seen this much data erased at once." Keller returned to the keyboard. "That is because most people never understand how temporary records really are." Price laughed quietly. "People trust screens too much." Mercer removed a folder from the cabinet. "And the paper files?" "Anything tied to Price goes through the shredder," Keller said. "Anything tied to me gets relabeled as an auction dispute." "What about the Williams vehicle?" Price looked toward him. "That file disappears completely." Mercer kept his face neutral. "Wouldn't that look suspicious?" "Only if someone knows it existed." He carried 3 boxes of documents into the records room and fed the pages into an industrial shredder. The machine reduced each report to narrow strips, but the FBI already possessed scanned copies from earlier seizures. Keller began resetting the camera archive. Rows of dates vanished from the monitor. "Garage entries, intake bays, transfer lanes," he said. "All of it." Price checked the time. "How long until the drive's overwrite?" "Less than 20 minutes. The hidden federal mirror captured the deletion commands, the account identity, and the specific camera files Keller had selected. Outside Blackstone, Marcus watched the evidence populate across 6 screens inside a mobile command center. Caroline sat near him with 2 forensic specialists. Maya occupied a separate seat at the rear, present only as an observer. One screen displayed the control room. Another showed the data copied from Blackstone. A third listed every deletion attempt in real time. Caroline read the latest entry. "Keller just removed surveillance from 9 vehicle transfers." "Preserved?" Marcus asked. "Complete copies received." "What about the account closures?" "Preserved." "The altered seizure records?" "Both versions preserved." Maya watched Price open a folder bearing Denise Carter's name. He removed the first page, scanned it, then marked the file for deletion. Even now, years after Denise had lost her car and her job, he was still trying to erase her. Inside the control room, the monitors gradually turned blank. Price leaned back in his chair. "That should take care of the digital records." Keller checked the storage dashboard. Every disputed vehicle now appeared abandoned, transferred, or released. He gave a satisfied nod. By sunrise, there will be nothing connecting us to this place. Price looked toward the dark screens. Her title means nothing without evidence. Mercer lowered his eyes so neither man would see his reaction. On the federal server, another audio file completed its upload. Marcus listened to Price's sentence through his headset, then looked at the growing archive. "They've given us intent," Caroline said. "They've given us everything," Marcus replied. Keller closed the binder and locked it inside a cabinet. "Move the remaining vehicles at midnight. Once they leave the gate, Blackstone becomes an empty lot with incomplete paperwork." Price stood and adjusted his jacket, and Maya Williams becomes a federal official with a damaged garage and an attitude. Neither man noticed the small status light hidden beneath the control console. They had erased every screen they could see. Miles away, the federal archive continued to fill. At 11:58, Marcus Bell gave the order. The mobile command center came alive in controlled silence. Technicians confirmed the sealed federal warrant. The perimeter teams reported their positions, and 4 surveillance drones rose above Blackstone Recovery. Their cameras mapped every lane between the rows of vehicles and every exit along the steel fence. Caroline Reed watched the facility's digital network on the central monitor. Internal servers are isolated. External deletion commands are blocked. 2. A technician raised his hand. Vehicle manufacturers are standing by. Remote immobilization is ready for the listed inventory. Marcus looked toward the aerial feed. Price, Keller, and Mercer remained inside the control building. 2 Blackstone employees were moving vehicles near the western gate, unaware that federal agents had already intercepted their instructions and identified them as witnesses rather than targets. "Wait until the gate opens," Marcus said. "No unnecessary confrontation. No one moves unless we can account for every person on the property." Maya sat behind the operational team. She had no radio and issued no commands. On one screen, her dark blue SUV appeared among the seized vehicles near the intake lane. Price had ordered it transferred to Blackstone after the investigation began, claiming it needed additional inspection. In reality, he had brought it there to make its records disappear with the others. Mercer entered the control room carrying the final stack of transfer manifests. He placed them beside Keller. "That's everything from the records office," he said. Keller checked his watch. "Start the vehicles." Price activated the gate controls. "We move the valuable ones first. The rest can sit here until the morning shift finds an empty database." Mercer glanced toward the security screens. "And if federal investigators arrive before then?" Keller smiled without looking up. "They will find a storage yard with incomplete records and no proof of who changed them." Price picked up a handheld radio. "West Line, begin transfer." Outside, 3 drivers climbed into separate vehicles. Engines turned over across the lot. The eastern gate began to open. Marcus spoke into his headset. "Lock it down." The response was immediate. Electronic barriers rose from the pavement outside both gates. The steel entrances stopped halfway through their movement, then reversed and sealed. At the same moment, the 3 vehicles approaching the exit lost power and rolled to a controlled stop. Inside the control building, every monitor flickered. Price stared at the screens. "What just happened?" Keller moved to the main console and entered his password. The system rejected it. He tried again. Access revoked. The overhead lights remained on, but the security displays changed one by one until each showed the same message. "Federal warrant in effect. Remain in place. Keep hands visible." Price grabbed his phone from the metal cabinet and powered it on. There was no signal. Keller checked his own device. "The network is down." "No," Mercer said. "It's contained." Price turned sharply. "What does that mean?" Before Mercer could answer, a clear voice filled the building through the public address system. "This is Special Agent Marcus Bell of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Blackstone Recovery is under federal control pursuant to a court-authorized warrant. All personnel must remain where they are and follow instructions." Keller rushed toward the secondary control panel. He pulled open the access cover and pressed the manual release for the western gate. Nothing happened. Outside, federal vehicles moved into view beyond the fence. They did not race forward. They formed measured lines at every exit, while agents took positions behind their doors. Above the yard, the drones held steady. Price looked at the camera feeds. They can't trap us inside our own property. This property is subject to a federal seizure order, Marcus replied through the speaker. No one is trapped. You are being given a lawful instruction to exit peacefully. Keller returned to the computer and attempted to access the remote archive. If I can reach the backup server, I can finish the wipe. The login page disappeared before he completed the command. A live evidence dashboard replaced it. Rows of files populated the screen. Vehicle records, financial transfers, deleted surveillance footage, anonymous call data, altered seizure reports. Price stepped closer. That's impossible. The screen displayed Keller's username beside every deletion command he had entered that night. Exact times appeared next to each action. A second column showed the original files preserved before deletion. Keller stopped typing. Price stared at the financial records. Turn it off. Mercer did not move. Turn it off, Price shouted. I don't control it. Price reached for the console, but the screen changed again. Video from Maya's garage appeared. The iron blade scraped against the lock. The side door opened. Price forced the SUV's window and ignored Maya's questions. Then the recording showed the plastic packet in his hand before he reached beneath the passenger seat. The audio shifted to Keller's voice. I accept responsibility for my unit. Next came his instruction to dispatch to alter the incident time. Finally, the room heard Price's voice from less than an hour earlier. Her title means nothing without evidence. The recording stopped. Marcus spoke through the system. The evidence was preserved before each deletion. Every change made tonight was transmitted to a protected federal server in real time. Keller's face lost its practiced calm. This system was isolated. It was mirrored under court authority, Marcus said. Price looked at Mercer. You did this. Mercer met his eyes. I stopped helping you hide it. You signed the reports. Yes. You were there. Yes. You think they're going to forgive you? No. The answer silenced Price for a moment. Mercer continued. I'm going to tell them exactly what I did. Keller stepped away from the console. We need counsel. You will have access to counsel, Marcus said. For now, walk to the main entrance one at a time. Keep your hands visible. Price moved toward the rear exit. The security door remained locked. A camera above it turned and centered on him. There has to be another way out, he said. Keller looked through the window at the raised barriers, the federal vehicles, and the drones holding position overhead. Every route had been closed without damage, confusion, or force. There isn't, he said. Price faced the main screen again. His own image remained frozen there, one hand inside Maya's vehicle, and the packet visible between his fingers. We erased everything, he said. Marcus replayed Keller's deletion log across the monitor. No, Sergeant. You documented everything. Mercer walked to the front entrance first. When the door released, he stepped outside with his hands visible and followed the agent's instructions. Keller remained inside for several seconds, staring at the white access denied message on the console he had once controlled. Then he straightened his jacket, raised both hands, and walked toward the door. Price was last. He looked across the rows of seized vehicles, including Maya's SUV, and then toward the screens displaying the records he had tried to destroy. His badge still rested on his chest, but it no longer opened doors, silenced questions, or changed the facts. The public address system repeated the instruction. Price slowly raised his hands. He followed Keller outside. No one ran. No one resisted. No one was harmed. The gates Price had used to move other people's property remained closed behind him, while the Federal Archive continued preserving the truth he could no longer rewrite. By dawn, Blackstone Recovery no longer operated as a private impound yard. Federal evidence teams controlled every building, terminal, filing cabinet, and vehicle on the property. Marcus Bell stood inside the main office while technicians photographed the room before touching anything. Keller's black binder remained locked in the cabinet where he had placed it. The shredded paper stayed inside the industrial machine. Even the blank computer screens were documented, because the absence of visible records was now part of the evidence. Caroline Reed entered wearing gloves and carrying the signed inventory order. Price and Keller have requested attorneys, she said. Good. Marcus replied. No interviews until counsel is present. What about Mercer? He has confirmed the access codes and the location of the backup records. He also signed a written acknowledgement that his cooperation does not guarantee immunity. Caroline looked through the glass wall toward the rows of vehicles outside. How many can we immediately connect to disputed seizures? 41 so far. The number will increase. A technician approached with a tablet. We recovered the original database and every altered version created tonight. The mirror captured each command before deletion. Can you identify the user? Marcus asked. Yes. Keller's credentials changed the seizure classifications and surveillance archive. Price's credentials closed the financial accounts and modified the vehicle transfer records. Any shared logins? Several. But the video from the control room shows who entered each command. Marcus nodded. Preserve both. We need the digital record and the human action tied together. At the Department of Justice, Maya watched the first evidence summary from a separate office. She did not attend the operational meetings and did not review charging recommendations. Her recusal remained in effect. She received only the information any victim would be entitled to receive. The search had been completed. Her SUV had been recovered, and the investigation had expanded beyond the incident at her home. The vehicle would remain in federal custody until forensic examination was finished. Maya accepted that without complaint. The SUV mattered to her, but the names appearing beside it mattered more. Denise Carter's file was among the first recovered from Blackstone. The official database had classified her Lexus as abandoned property. The mirrored archive showed that Keller had changed the status himself 3 days after Denise filed her complaint. The financial records revealed that Blackstone sold the vehicle through an affiliated auction company. Part of the payment moved through 2 corporate accounts before reaching a trust connected to Keller. Price received a separate transfer marked as consulting income. There had been nothing accidental about the loss of Denise's car. Marcus called her that afternoon. We found your original seizure record, he said. Denise was silent for several seconds. The one they said no longer existed? Yes. And the complaint? That too. Does it show who changed it? It does. Denise exhaled slowly. So, what happens now? Your case will be reopened. An independent team will review the seizure, the sale, the financial loss, and the effect on your employment. Will I get the car back? The vehicle was sold years ago. We cannot return that exact car. I know, but restitution may include its value, the fees you paid, and documented income you lost. Denise did not celebrate. What about everyone else? We are building a list. That is not the same as finding them. No, Marcus said. It isn't. The following week, the Department of Justice opened a confidential assistance line for adults whose vehicles had been searched, seized, or transferred through Blackstone Recovery. The announcement did not mention Maya's title or present her garage as the beginning of the case. It focused on patterns of unlawful entry, evidence manipulation, and improper vehicle disposal. Calls arrived within hours. Some people still had complete files. Others remembered only dates, officer names, or the color of the tow truck that removed their vehicle. Several had stopped keeping documents because every complaint they submitted had been returned or ignored. Ethan Cole volunteered through a local legal aid group to help older residents preserve digital records. He showed them how to copy doorbell footage, save emails, photograph envelopes, and record file dates without altering the originals. When Maya thanked him, Ethan shook his head. I spent 40 years telling people a system is only reliable when somebody checks the logs, he said. Seems wrong to retire from the principal. Mercer's formal interview lasted 2 days. He identified 12 searches in which Price carried suspected evidence before entering a vehicle. He admitted turning off his body camera, signing inaccurate reports, and keeping owners away while Price searched. Caroline asked him the same question more than once. At what point did you know the reports were false? Mercer never found an answer that made him look better. Earlier than I admitted to myself, he finally said. He entered a guilty plea to charges connected to false statements and obstruction. The agreement required complete cooperation, testimony under oath, and acceptance of the court's sentence. It promised no complete immunity and no restoration of his police career. When Marcus informed Maya, she asked only one question. Did he take responsibility without blaming Price? Yes. Then the record should reflect that. 8 weeks after the Blackstone operation, the evidence was presented to a federal grand jury in Alexandria. The case no longer depended on a single recording. Prosecutors presented the garage footage, dispatch manipulation, body camera gaps, vehicle records, financial transfers, internal affairs closures, Blackstone deletion logs, and Mercer's testimony. Denise's file demonstrated the human cost behind the transactions. Ethan's network data established that Price and Mercer had reached Maya's street before the anonymous report entered the official system. The grand jury returned indictments against Nolan Price and Grant Keller for conspiracy against civil rights, unlawful searches, evidence manipulation, obstruction, falsification of records, and participation in a fraudulent vehicle seizure operation. Additional charges remained under review. Marcus delivered the news to Maya in person. "They have been indicted," he said. Maya placed the written notice on her desk but did not open it immediately. "How many disputed cases have been identified?" 63. "How many people have we reached?" 49. "And the others?" "We are still looking." Maya finally opened the notice. Price's and Keller's names appeared at the top, followed by pages of allegations that had once existed only as denials, closed complaints, and missing files. "An indictment is not the end," she said. "No, it is not even a promise of conviction." "No." Marcus waited. Maya looked through the office window toward the city below. "But it means they no longer control the record." For years, Price and Keller had relied on the same advantage. They wrote first, filed first, and decided which complaints survived. Now every altered report stood beside its original version. Every deleted file had a preserved copy. Every person they had reduced to a case number had been given a name again. The conspiracy had ended at Blackstone. The public accounting was about to begin. 9 months after the Blackstone operation, the federal courthouse in Alexandria filled before the first witness was called. Reporters occupied the rear benches. Former officers sat behind the defense tables, and adults whose vehicles had passed through Blackstone waited together along the aisle. Maya entered through a side door reserved for witnesses. She wore a charcoal suit and carried no files. Although her title appeared on the witness list, she did not sit with the prosecution team. Caroline Reed had made that separation visible from the first day of trial. Nolan Price sat beside his attorneys without a uniform. Grant Keller occupied the second defense table, his posture rigid and his expression carefully controlled. Neither man looked at Maya until the clerk called her name. She crossed the courtroom, raised her right hand, and took the oath. After stating her full name, Caroline approached the lectern. "What is your current position?" "I serve as special counsel to the United States Attorney General for Police Integrity." "Did you have any role in deciding which charges would be filed in this case?" "No." "Did you apply for warrants, negotiate witness agreements, recommend sentences, or direct the investigation?" "No." "I recused myself immediately because I was the victim of the search." Caroline nodded. "Let us return to the night Sergeant Price entered your garage. When you first saw him, did you know he was a police officer?" "Not until his flashlight crossed his badge." "Had either officer knocked on your door?" "No." "Had they announced their presence?" "No." "Did they show you a warrant?" "No." The garage recording appeared on the courtroom monitor. The audio began with the scrape of metal against the side door, followed by the crack of wood and Price's order to remain where she was. Maya watched without turning away. The jury saw Price force the SUV's lock, remove the registration, confirm the address, and continue searching. They heard Maya ask about a warrant, an emergency, and the vehicle description. They heard Price refuse to answer. Caroline paused the video just before Price moved toward Maya. "What happened next?" "He ordered me to give him my phone." "Did you comply?" "No." "Why not?" "He had not identified any legal authority to seize it." The video resumed. Price crossed the garage and reached toward Maya. She shifted aside, controlled his wrist and elbow, stopped his movement, then released him. "Did you strike Sergeant Price?" "No." "Did you force him into a wall or onto the floor?" "No." "Did you continue holding him after he stopped reaching for the phone?" "No." "Was he injured?" Not to my knowledge. Caroline returned to the prosecution table. Price's attorney rose for cross-examination. Richard Sloan was an experienced trial lawyer with a calm voice and a talent for turning simple facts into questions about motive. Miss Williams, you have formal self-defense training, correct? Yes. And Sergeant Price did not know that. No. You were capable of injuring him. I was capable of avoiding him without doing so. Sloan walked closer to the jury. But you chose to place him in a joint control position. I chose to stop him from taking my phone. You could have handed it over and challenged the seizure later. I could also have allowed him to take property he had no lawful right to seize. I was not required to do that. Sloan paused. You understood the legal consequences of every question you asked that night, didn't you? I understood my rights. You were building a record. I was asking 2 officers to explain why they had broken into my garage. You wanted them to make statements that could later be used against them. I wanted them to answer basic questions before continuing an unlawful search. Sloan picked up a printed photograph of Maya controlling Price's arm. It was the same frame that had appeared in the edited news clip. You knew this image would be damaging to Sergeant Price. The complete recording shows what happened. A single image does not. You also knew that once your position became public, every agency involved would take your complaint seriously. Maya remained still. That is one reason I recused myself. Sloan stepped nearer to the witness stand. Would this night have unfolded differently if Sergeant Price had known who you were? The courtroom became silent. Maya looked briefly at Price. He was watching her now. It should not have mattered who I was, she said. He only needed to know it was not his garage, not his vehicle, and not his right to enter either one. Sloan held her gaze but did not immediately respond. Maya continued, her voice measured. I identified myself as the homeowner. The registration confirmed it. The address confirmed it. None of that stopped the search. Sloan returned to his table without asking another question. The prosecution called Ethan Cole next. He explained how his doorbell camera captured the patrol cars entering the street before the anonymous report appeared in dispatch. He described preserving the original files and router logs without modifying them. Keller's attorney suggested the timing difference could have resulted from a routine dispatch delay. Ethan adjusted his glasses. A delay would explain why the report appeared late. It would not explain why Sergeant Price's device tried to connect near Miss Williams's house before the caller supposedly contacted police. Denise Carter testified the following morning. She described Price opening her Lexus, Mercer holding her away from the vehicle, and the packet found beneath the passenger seat. She explained how Blackstone's fees increased until she could not recover the car, and how losing transportation cost her the work she had performed for years. Price's attorney asked whether she had personally seen him place anything in the vehicle. No, Denise said. So your accusation is based on suspicion. My case is based on records your clients tried to delete. The financial specialist then showed the jury that Blackstone had listed Denise's Lexus in its system before the search took place. Money from the eventual sale passed through corporate accounts connected to Keller, with a separate payment sent to Price. Mercer took the stand last. He admitted turning off cameras, signing false reports, and remaining silent while Price searched vehicles. He did not ask the jury to excuse him. Why are you testifying now? Caroline asked. Because I spent years telling myself that standing nearby was different from participating. It wasn't. Did Maya Williams offer you immunity? No. Did Agent Bell? No. What were you promised? That my cooperation would be reported to the court. Nothing more. Mercer identified Price's messages, Keller's access codes, and the system used to generate anonymous reports after vehicles had already been selected. The defense attacked his credibility for nearly 2 hours. Mercer agreed that he had lied before, protected Price, and signed reports he knew were false. When Keller's attorney asked why anyone should believe him now, Mercer looked toward the jury. You should not believe me, because I finally decided to tell the truth. You should compare what I say with the recordings, the financial records, the timestamps, and the files they tried to erase. By the end of the trial, no single witness carried the case. Maya's recording showed the entry. Ethan's data established the timing. Denise's records revealed the cost. Mercer explained the method. Blackstone's mirrored servers preserved the conspiracy in the defendant's own commands. The evidence did not ask the jury to choose between a young black woman and two experienced police officials. It showed what each person had done, what each person had concealed, and who had profited when the truth was buried. After 6 hours of deliberation, the jury informed the court that it had reached a verdict. The clerk read the verdicts one count at a time. Guilty of conspiracy against civil rights. Guilty of unlawful searches. Guilty of evidence manipulation. Guilty of falsifying official records. Guilty of obstruction. Guilty of participating in a fraudulent vehicle seizure operation. Nolan Price remained motionless through the first count, but by the fourth, the confidence had left his face. Grant Keller stared straight ahead, his hands folded on the defense table. Though the knuckles had turned pale, no one in the gallery celebrated. Denise Carter closed her eyes. Ethan Cole lowered his head. Maya sat behind the prosecution team, separate from them as she had been throughout the trial. She felt no triumph, only the slow release of a pressure she had carried since the night two men entered her garage and decided her word would never matter. The judge thanked the jurors and scheduled sentencing for 6 weeks later. Price and Keller were allowed to leave the courtroom under federal supervision, but neither man looked toward the gallery as they passed. Their badges were gone. Their authority was gone. The record remained. At the sentencing hearing, the courtroom filled again. This time, there was no uncertainty about what the evidence had proved. The only question was how the court would measure years of deliberate choices. Keller's attorney spoke first. He described his client as a man who had served the city for more than 3 decades, supervised hundreds of officers, and received commendations for administrative leadership. He argued that Keller had made serious errors while trying to protect a department under pressure. When the attorney finished, Keller rose. He wore a dark suit that hung more loosely than it had during the trial. His voice was controlled at first. "Your Honor, I accept that mistakes were made under my command." The judge looked down from the bench. "Mistakes were made by whom?" "Captain Keller." Keller hesitated. "By me," he said. The judge waited. Keller continued. "I believed I was protecting the department from damage that could have destroyed public trust." From the gallery, Denise's expression hardened. Keller turned toward Maya. "Miss Williams, I ask you to consider the years I served before this incident. I ask you to tell the court that I am more than the worst decisions I made." Maya had not planned to speak until the judge invited victim statements, but Keller's request placed the room's attention on her. The judge looked toward her. "Miss Williams, you may respond if you wish." Maya stood. "You did not protect the department," she said. "You protected the conduct that destroyed its honor." Keller lowered his eyes. Maya continued. "A police department earns trust by correcting wrongdoing, not by hiding it. Every report you altered made the next violation easier. Every complaint you closed taught your officers that loyalty mattered more than truth." Keller's attorney started to rise, but the judge raised one hand and allowed Maya to finish. "You ask the court to remember your years of service," she said. "The court should remember them. Experience gave you more opportunities to recognize what was wrong, not fewer." Maya sat down. Keller did not look at her again. Price's attorney spoke next. He described Price as a veteran officer who had operated for years in difficult situations and gradually lost perspective. He asked the court to consider that Price had not physically injured Maya and had believed he was protecting investigations from interference. The judge's expression remained unreadable. Price rose when invited to speak. For several seconds, he could not begin. Then he turned toward Maya. "I did not know who you were." The words were quiet, but they carried through the courtroom. Maya looked at him. "That was never the point." Price swallowed. "If I had known your position, I would have handled the situation differently. That is the problem." He looked toward the judge, then back at Maya. "I made a mistake." Maya rose again when the judge permitted her to answer. "A mistake ends when a person recognizes it," she said. "You broke the lock, searched the vehicle, planted evidence, rewrote the report, and tried to erase the truth. Those were choices." Price's face tightened. "I was under pressure," he said. "So were the people whose vehicles you took. I never meant for anyone to lose everything." You continued after they filed complaints. You continued after you knew the evidence was false. You continued after you learned the vehicles were being sold. Price had no answer. The judge invited the remaining victim statements. Denise approached the lectern carrying no notes. "When they took my car, they also took my ability to work," she said. "I spent years thinking I had failed because I could not recover from one bad night. Now I know the night was designed to make me fail." She looked at Price and Keller. "You counted on people being too tired, too poor, or too ashamed to keep fighting. Some of us stopped. That does not mean what you did disappeared." Ethan spoke briefly about the duty of witnesses. "If a public record can be changed without anyone checking the time, then every citizen depends on someone willing to preserve the clock," he said. "I was fortunate enough to have the equipment to do that. Most people do not." Mercer addressed the court last. He did not ask for forgiveness. "I stood beside wrongdoing because I was afraid of losing my career," he said. "In doing so, I helped other people lose their transportation, their work, and their trust. I cooperated when the system turned against me, but that does not make my earlier silence honorable." The judge reviewed the scale of the conspiracy, the number of victims, the financial records, and the repeated efforts to destroy evidence. She also acknowledged Mercer's cooperation without treating it as complete redemption. Then she imposed sentence. Price received a substantial federal prison term, permanent loss of law enforcement certification, and an order requiring the forfeiture of proceeds connected to Blackstone. Keller received a longer sentence for directing the concealment, manipulating public records, and profiting from the operation. He was permanently barred from holding any public office involving supervision, evidence management, or access to law enforcement databases. Mercer received a reduced sentence based on cooperation, but he was not spared accountability. His certification was revoked, and the court required him to testify in all reopened cases connected to the conspiracy. The assets tied to Blackstone were ordered into a restitution fund for the victims. When the judge finished, Price remained seated. Keller bowed his head. Neither man had been humiliated by insults or public spectacle. Their own words, signatures, and commands had done the work. Before leaving the courtroom, Price looked toward Maya one final time. There was no anger left in his face, only the exhausted recognition that the woman he had dismissed in a dark garage had never needed to threaten him. She had only needed the truth to survive him. As the courtroom emptied, Marcus approached Maya near the aisle. "It's over," he said. "The case against them is over." He understood the distinction. Outside, Denise waited with Ethan near the courthouse steps. Several former vehicle owners stood with them, holding copies of letters confirming that their claims had been reopened. Punishment had removed 2 men from power. Justice still had property to return, records to correct, and trust to rebuild. Maya stepped outside to join them. 1 year after the night at Maya's house, the federal court approved the final reform agreement governing the Alexandria Police Department. The order required automatic body camera activation whenever an officer left a patrol vehicle during an investigation. Entry into a home, garage, or other private structure had to be supported by a warrant, clearly documented consent, or an emergency that could be explained and reviewed. Anonymous reports involving private property could no longer be treated as sufficient on their own. Vehicle seizures had to be independently audited before any sale, transfer, or disposal. No officer could control the only copy of footage connected to his own conduct. Witnesses who saw misconduct were required to report it. A civilian review board received access to records that had once remained sealed inside Keller's office. The agreement did not promise that no officer would ever abuse authority again. It created fewer places for that abuse to hide. Maya watched the judge sign the order from a seat near the back of the courtroom. She had helped design many of the standards years earlier, but she had not negotiated this agreement. Her recusal remained in place until the final signature. Marcus Bell sat beside her. When the judge closed the file, he leaned closer. "Now, it is official." Maya looked toward the adults seated across the aisle. Some had recovered vehicles. Others had received financial compensation. Several were still waiting for old convictions or property claims to be reviewed. "It is official," she said. "That is not the same as finished." Marcus nodded. No reform ever is. Denise Carter waited outside the courthouse with a set of new car keys in her hand. The restitution process had reimbursed the value of her Lexus, part of her lost income, and the storage fees Blackstone had charged after selling the vehicle. She had used the money to buy a reliable gray sedan. Nothing fancy, she told Maya. I wanted something that starts every morning and does not make me argue with a dashboard. Maya smiled. That sounds practical. At my age, practical is a luxury. Denise held up the keys. I start with a new home care agency on Monday. Fewer clients, better hours, and no one calls me after midnight, unless it is truly important. You deserve the quiet. So do you. Denise's expression softened. I was angry with you when we met. You had every reason to be. I thought the government had moved quickly only because the wrong woman had been targeted. It did move faster because of my position. Denise appreciated that Maya did not deny it. But you made sure the rest of us were not left behind, she said. You made sure I understood that I could not let that happen. Denise pressed the keys into her palm. Then, we both did our jobs. Across the plaza, Ethan Cole was helping an older couple save photographs of towing notices onto a tablet. Since the investigation, he had begun volunteering twice a week with a local legal aid clinic. He taught adults how to preserve digital records, check timestamps, copy camera footage, and keep documents in more than one place. When he saw Maya, he raised a paper cup in greeting. I finally replaced that old router, he said, when she joined him. I thought you trusted it. I trusted it to become evidence. That is not the same as trusting it with my banking. The older couple laughed. Ethan lowered his voice. The neighborhood has been quieter. I noticed. People also talk more. About what happened? About what they would do if it happened to someone else. Maya looked toward the courthouse doors. That may matter more. Mercer did not attend the hearing. As part of his sentence, he continued testifying in reopened cases and had agreed to participate in ethics training for law enforcement recruits after completing his confinement. In a written statement released through the court, he said that silence had never been neutral. Every time he had looked away, he had helped someone else write a false record. Maya read the statement once. She neither praised nor dismissed it. Responsibility did not require applause. That evening, she drove back to Rosemont in the dark blue SUV. Federal technicians had returned it months earlier after completing the forensic work. The damaged door had been repaired, the interior cleaned, and the electronic system replaced. Maya still noticed the compartment beneath the passenger seat whenever she entered the car. Some memories did not disappear after repairs. The neighborhood was quiet when she turned into her driveway. Ethan's porch light glowed across the street, and his curtains were open just enough for her to see him carrying a coffee cup toward the kitchen. He lifted one hand. Maya returned the gesture. The garage door rose. For a moment, she remained behind the wheel. She remembered the broken wood, the flashlight in her eyes, and Price telling her that by morning only his story would remain. She remembered Keller closing the garage door so no one outside could see what his officers had done. The new side entrance had a reinforced frame and an ordinary brass lock. Maya had refused the contractor's suggestion to install a heavier steel door. She did not want the house to become a fortress. She wanted it to remain a home. She drove inside and turned off the engine. The garage light came on automatically, filling the space with a warm, steady glow. Nothing moved in the shadows. No one stood beside the electrical panel. No uniform waited near the vehicle. Maya stepped out and noticed an envelope resting on the driver's seat. Denise had placed it there after lunch, when she stopped by to show Maya the new sedan. Inside was a photograph of Denise holding her keys beside the car. On the back, she had written, "Thank you for keeping the truth when they tried to erase it." Maya read the sentence twice. Her phone vibrated. A message from Marcus appeared on the screen. The reform agreement is official. Independent monitoring begins Monday. Before Maya could answer, Judge Helen Brooks called. "Are you home?" Helen asked. "I just arrived. How does it feel?" Maya looked around the garage. The repaired SUV stood where it had on the night of the search. The electrical panel was closed. The camera system showed a small green light. But for once, Maya did not check the recording status. "Quiet," she said. "Good quiet?" "Yes." Helen waited. knowing there was more. Maya walked toward the kitchen door, then stopped with one hand on the handle. For a long time, I thought justice would mean watching them lose everything they used against other people. And now, it means Denise can drive to work. Ethan can help someone preserve a record. It means a complaint cannot disappear because one captain changes a label. Helen's voice softened. And what does it mean for you? Maya looked back at the open garage door and the dark driveway beyond it. It means I came home, then closed the door. Maya smiled. She pressed the wall control. The garage door began to descend, steady and quiet. The outside darkness narrowed until only a thin line remained along the floor. No one else gets to decide whether I belong here, Maya said. No, Helen replied. They never did. The door closed completely. Maya stood beneath the warm light with Denise's photograph in one hand and the brass house key in the other. Justice was no longer a voice demanding entry in the dark. It was the quiet certainty that the door would open only for those who had the right to cross it. The lesson from Maya's story is simple. Justice should never depend on a person's title, wealth, age, or influence. The law means nothing if it protects only the powerful. Real courage is staying calm when others abuse their authority, preserving the truth, and refusing to let silence protect wrongdoing. Thank you for listening all the way to the end of this story. Your time and support truly mean a great deal to us. We would love to hear your thoughts about the way this story was told. Was the pacing clear? Did the emotions feel natural? Which moment stayed with you the most? Your feedback helps us improve every story we share. And if you have a meaningful, inspiring, or unforgettable story of your own, please consider sending it to our channel. Your experience may become the next story that gives someone else courage, hope, or a reason to keep believing in justice. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.